How you doing, guys? Welcome back. It's LSP. It's currently the 12th of July 2022. I'm just going to do a quick breakdown on Bitcoin. We're going to use the 1, 2, 3, 4 chart. And I want to preface this study by saying the reason that it's a good idea to do these types of things is when we look at the weekly chart, we have a rough idea of what to expect. You guys remember I did that crash video talking about 14K. I did that deliberately because I wanted to kind of put it out there, have it there as a reference point. It doesn't mean that price will go to 14K, although I do believe it will. But the point I'm trying to make is I'm preparing for these scenarios, and I'm trying to kind of just post it there so I can validate, some of the things that I'm saying a little bit later. But more importantly, in terms of, education, when we look at these higher timeframes and we start to understand the dynamic of what we're seeing, these huge shift in flows, and now that we're kind of stabilizing down here in this area, 20,000 has been holding for quite some time, give or take, down a little bit, up a little bit, but the mean is becoming 20K. So we see this on the weekly chart. So we know where we are on the weekly chart. There's nothing else for us to kind of ascertain. We know where the levels are. So we don't really need to spend too much time on the weekly chart. So what we start to do is we start to drop down timeframes and we start to break it down and try to understand what could potentially be unfolding based on, say, the 4-hour scenarios, 4-hour order flows, and so on, right? And it's important to really emphasize this doesn't in any way take away from the higher time frame bias. Okay, the higher time frame will win every time, even when it doesn't. It really is that important to focus on these higher time frame levels, higher time frame biases, and higher time frame flows, because when you do, anything that happens on the lower time frames is in line with what you're seeing on the higher time frames. Very quick example: if you're expecting 40K on the weekly chart on Bitcoin and your analysis verifies that, then you would look to the 4-hour, the hourly, for indications that that is indeed the case. Is the hourly moving in the direction you expect? Is it driving towards that 40K level, and so on? Okay, so this is why we do these studies. So when we've when we noted 1, 2, 3, 4 here, I did this in this way. So what happens is, if price drives up to 4, for example, and then holds, right, it gives one scenario. If it drives up to 4, starts to pull back as it is, maybe responds from 1 and starts to grind back up again, another scenario is in play. If it does what it's done now, where it didn't actually get to 4 and it started to come down, we know it didn't even have enough strength or enough momentum in this short-term time frame to even get to number 4. Okay, and it's retraced pretty much the entire move up. That tells us something completely different, and it's showing this continued underlying weakness in the market, right? So we paint a picture. We mark our levels, we absolutely maintain high time frame levels, and then we start to look for reasons, to confirm a bunch of scenarios, and one of those is going to be the right scenario. That tells us, yes, this is the current order flow. This is the buy or this is the sell. This is the imbalance, and it favors the buyers or it favors the sellers, right? So going forward, it's looking like we are, maintaining to 20,000 for now. We've got CPI numbers coming tomorrow. I'll just quickly show you. It was currently Tuesday. Not really a great deal going on today. And then tomorrow, 13th of July, we have the Canadian overnight rate, or the interest rate. Shouldn't really affect the US markets too much. Obviously, for Canada, it will affect the Canadian dollar. But this is not predominantly what I'm going to be focused on. I'm going to be focused more on this CPI and core CPI data. There is an argument to be made that we are already in a recession, and obviously, the confirming factor, is 2 negative or 3 negative, whatever it is. I don't really study this stuff too much, but 2 or 3 negative, numbers in terms of CPI numbers, confirms that we are in a recession. Now, for me, I don't subscribe to any of this stuff. I believe we're in a recession because you've only got to look around. It's not just in the UK or the US or Cyprus. It's everywhere. This is hammering everybody everywhere. Prices are exploding. Cost of goods has gone through the roof. Petrol's going crazy. Gas and electric prices have gone nuts. There's no escaping the reality that inflation, has put us into a recession. It's as simple as it gets, right? So I don't really subscribe to any of this stuff, but I look for the volatility that it creates, and I look for the movement. and to give us a better indication of what we can expect, going forward in the markets. Now, if we look at the remainder of the week, we have the unemployment rates for Australia. Again, not really going to be affecting the US market too much, but it will, affect the Australian dollar. So anybody who is predominantly a forex trader definitely want to be paying attention to this, especially if you're trading the Asian session. So keep an eye on this. And then obviously we have PPI numbers for the US. That's on Thursday. Friday, retail sales, core retail sales. So there's quite a lot going on this week, but predominantly Wednesday. This is the main focus, and this is what we want to be paying attention to going into tomorrow. So going back to the charts, just to kind of wrap this one up, I'll jump over to Binance. Let's get this 4-hour chart scrunched up. Jump over to Binance. Binance is maintaining a little bit of strength, but again, couldn't quite muster that 250. Really was expecting that 250. $2.50 off, roughly, give or take. It's not too bad, but again, you can see the underlying weakness in the general market, and I say general market globally, is continuing to pull, assets down, and people just don't want to invest. But here's the interesting thing. There's a lot of money being moved around. Okay, if you look at some of the wallets, Whale Alert, for example, one of the Telegram groups. I mean, it's constant. There's huge amounts of money being continually pushed from one exchange to unknown wallets, from unknown wallets back to exchanges. And it's definitely not dry in that respect. There is big money being moved around, and sometimes looking at that big money can give us an indication as to what we could potentially be expecting, in terms of risk on or risk off. So some things to think about. But going forward, if I just jump up to the weekly chart, of Binance, we can see this kind of narrowing. It's getting a little bit tighter and tighter and tighter, and I am still expecting, the 150 to 148 level to be traded to. And tomorrow, hopefully, should give us a little bit more of an indication as to whether that's going to happen soon or sooner. All right. So that's the video update for today. I probably won't be around for the remainder of the day in terms of video or analysis, but I'm in all of the usual places if anybody needs me. I look forward to speaking to you soon. Hope everyone's having an absolutely fantastic day or evening wherever you are in the world. Ciao for now.